Hey guys, how's it going? I am IAmPattyJack, and welcome to the video where I talk about the things that Mass Effect Andromeda could possibly balls up. And before you call me a hater, just go back and watch the video that I uploaded a couple days ago, which was the things that I thought Mass Effect Andromeda could end up doing very well. You know, I'm a well-rounded channel, so I look at the goods and the bads and the... I don't need to explain myself to you, okay? So these are the things that I think Mass Effect Andromeda could potentially mess up, like, a lot. And the first thing that I think it could mess up is the open world. Now, it's no secret that in the past, I've been skeptical about the idea of having an open world version of the Mass Effect series, and in the past, Mass Effect has always shined as a series when it uses created levels to its advantage. It combines gameplay with level design to create an engaging product. A large open world, though, has the potential to limit good level design and take that away from the game completely, or worse, expose other parts of it, such as the combat system. And to add on to that, BioWare in particular seems to prefer making their open worlds mostly empty with a few arbitrary loot items and packs of enemies that are roaming around it, and it can make games feel lackluster, and it takes away from interesting storytelling and gameplay sections. And another thing that I'm very skeptical about is the characters. Now, Mass Effect Andromeda is in the position where it needs to create an entire new galaxy and almost a new franchise, but it still has a previous series to live up to. And a huge part of the initial fan reaction is how relatable and how likable all the characters that are in the game are. The characters that you encounter in the game could very easily fall flat if they're not properly paced or if they aren't given enough personality. Mass Effect is known for having memorable and complex characters. Look at Garrus, Tali, Miranda, Jack, and many more. These characters all have complex histories, stories, flaws, and interests that make them seem almost like real people. It's going to be very difficult to replicate that with an entire new cast where that history has to be remade. It's almost like lightning striking twice in a lot of aspects. Now, while I know that BioWare has the potential to pull off some great characters, they have still had their fair share of duds in the past as well, both in the Mass Effect and also the Dragon Age series. And speaking of Dragon Age, crafting systems are something else that I'm a little bit skeptical about the inclusion of in Mass Effect Andromeda. Crafting systems, as we all know, have seen a huge surge in popularity in both indie games and mainstream titles. One of the reasons for that, particularly in games with lower budgets, is that it's a way to pad out the gameplay so that people need to spend more time playing a game and have a greater possibility of feeling as though they got their money's worth afterwards. The AAA video games industry has also become adept at adding crafting systems to games, and that is a real threat to many players' enjoyment of the product. We've even seen this from BioWare specifically, as myself and many others have pointed out in the past. The company has added in a wealth of collection and crafting systems into recent titles. And of course, Dragon Age Inquisition is probably the main perpetrator of that, and it's also their most recent RPG, so it's natural to be a little bit skeptical of that. So it's entirely possible that we could see some crafting systems being used liberally in Mass Effect Andromeda, and that personally worries me, as 90% of the time crafting and collecting isn't engaging content. And something else that potentially worries me, although we don't have a whole lot of info about it yet, is the multiplayer. We know that multiplayer in Mass Effect Andromeda is going to be a weird beast. It's going to have a lot of different things that you don't see in a lot of games, and by that I mean it's going to be in some way tied to the single-player campaign. Now, I'm not one to straight out say it's a bad idea. We haven't even experienced what BioWare has in mind on this one yet. That being said, though, it does have some major potential implications for how your single-player experience shapes up. The expectation right now is that the multiplayer funds that you earn will also be transferable to the single-player experience, and that you can probably just pause single-player and instantly do multiplayer missions as a way for extra cash. Now, that actually sounds like something I'm fine with. It gives a reason to play both modes and more options for people to play the game. The scary part for me, though, is the possibility that because multiplayer is tied into the game, we're going to see some sort of DRM service that limits your single-player experience. The last thing I want in Mass Effect is to not be able to play a single-player game offline, because as we all know, DRM is scary. And finally, this is probably my biggest concern and worry about it, and that's the choices involved when you're playing the game. Now, I'm a huge fan of classic-style RPGs like Baldur's Gate, Planescape Torment, and I especially love that they've reinvigorated the entire genre in recent years with games like Pillars of Eternity or Divinity Original Sin. One of the elements that draws me to those games has always been the choices involved. There are multiple ways to progress through quests, complete them, abandon them, be the good guy, the bad guy, a good guy that does bad things, and really whatever else you can think of. But the trend we've seen in recent years with games like Mass Effect or Dragon Age Inquisition, Fallout 4, and others has been concerning to someone like me. I'm not a fan of the dialogue wheel, like at all. I can go away and just go die in a ditch for all I care. It offers a very limited amount of choices for how you progress through the story, and more often than not, it boils down to good guy, sarcastic guy, or bad guy. That's not the RPG experience that I value. And it looks like that trend is going to continue with BioWare products. We even saw this in action with progression of dialogue in the Dragon Age series itself. And while it's always been a part of Mass Effect, don't get me wrong, it's worrisome to me that they're continuing down that path because it simplifies the experience even further. At the end of the day, I just want my choices, goddammit. So those are my personal concerns about Mass Effect Andromeda, and again, I know some of you didn't listen to the start of it. I also did a video a couple days ago where I was talking about the things that I was excited for or that I thought the game could do very well. So if you don't agree with this, go watch that video, see if I talk about anything that you do agree with. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments. If there's anything else you're worried about or you're excited about, I would love to hear from you. And special thanks to all the recent VidMe and Patreon supporters. If you want to support me on either of those platforms, you're absolutely able to do that. Links to that stuff in the description. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.